wherever you are, and welcome to the start of a series of videos where I'm going to teach you how to code in C#. It's been a very popular subject, so I hope you're here for the long stay. To get things started, what you'll need to do is choose an IDE, a programming tool that we use to build our applications within. I'm going to show you how to use 3 different tools just to get you started today. So we're going to look at Visual Studio Community Edition, Visual Studio Code, and also JetBrains Rider tool. So those are the 3 tools that we're going to look at. And just to make it a little bit more even, I'm also going to use Windows and MacOS. So let's get started. Okay, the first one we're going to have a look at is going to be Visual Studio. And I'm going to use a browser just to help me get to the main page. So first of all, let's search for Visual Studio. Okay, now we don't want Visual Studio Code, we just want Visual Studio. So I'm just going to search for Visual Studio on its own. And as you can see, I'm presented with quite a few options. This will allow you to download it directly from their website. But actually, I'm going to go to their website mainly to show you what you can see there. So we've got visualstudiocode.microsoft.com. Don't get it from anywhere else. There are some sites you can go to which might cause a few problems for you later on. And just to let you know, today is the 4th of August 2025. So if you do go to this site and it's looking different, it might be just they've done some updates or something like that. Okay, so we've got 2 options here. We've actually got 2 download buttons. We've got a download button for Visual Studio and also a download button for Visual Studio Code. We're mainly focusing on Visual Studio. I'm just going to scroll down. Visual Studio now has GitHub Copilot included with it. You'll need to have a GitHub account to use that tool fully, but we'll get onto that in another lesson. Well, I'm just going to scroll down to here because this is the bit that you really need to do. So it's Visual Studio we're going to download, and it is the Community Edition. Now, the Community Edition will allow you to use the software providing you're not making huge amounts of money from it or something like that. I will remind you that you need to look at the license for it just to make sure that you're not in breach of the license. But please check it. The Professional and the Enterprise are payable services, so you would need to pay for those. And the preview version, this one down at the bottom, is set up for developers who might want to use the new tools that are coming out. We've got a new version of C# and a new version of .NET just around the corner, probably due out around about September. So I'm going to choose the community. So once I click on that, it'll take you to this page, which is kind of like a thank you for downloading Visual Studio, but it does give you a lot of information here, a couple of videos and some write-ups that might be worth reading. As you can see, it's already downloaded for me. So I'm just going to open the file. So I click on Open File. And what that will do is it will start up what's called the Visual Studio installer. All right. Now, again, we've got the privacy statement and the license terms there. You might want to check those out just to make sure you're not going to be in breach of those. And then hit Continue. It doesn't really take too long to install the installer. And once the installer is, you'll then be presented with this screen. Now, this allows you to tailor your Visual Studio Community Edition to the way you want. Now, if you're following with my session, I'm going to be covering quite a few topics in C#. So I'm just going to take you through what I would choose. So first of all, I'm going to be using ASP.NET. All right, this is the web application version of C#. So I'm going to select that one. I'm not going to do any Azure work at the moment, but I might do it at a later date. I can leave it blank because I can return to this screen anytime I need to make any updates. I'm definitely not going to be using Python or Node. Node is used with JavaScript. So I'm going to go down to desktop and mobile. Now I will be doing some MAUI stuff. All right, MAUI, that's the multi-platform application UI development tool. Actually, it says it there. I'm just going to click on that. I am going to do some .NET stuff in console. So I'm going to use this tool here, which is the .NET desktop. You'll also notice on the right-hand side of my screen, it's actually adding some of those tools in for me over here. This is like a shopping list of all the things it's going to include. I'm not going to do anything with C++, but I might do some work with WinUI. So I'm going to choose that. Definitely not going to do any mobile development with C++ on this time. Now, if you're a gamer, you might want to work on Unity, and this is where you get to choose your Unity software. Okay, if you want Unity, just click on this box here. Now, I'm not going to do any Unity work, so I'm going to ignore that. And then we've got some other tool sets as well. So the data storage and processing comes in really handy for SQL work. We will be doing some SQL work later on, so I'm going to include that. The data science and analytical stuff might be of an interest to me, but I'm not going to include it at this time. However, the Visual Studio extension development may help me later on, so I'm going to pick that as well. Office SharePoint I don't need, and Linux, Mac, and embedded development with C++ I don't need at the moment. You can then go over to individual components where you can pick what you want. Now, at the moment, it's going to install .NET 8 and .NET 9. I really don't have much need for any of the older versions of .NET, but should you be working with older versions of .NET, this is where you would pick it. So you can go right back to .NET 5, which is currently out of support. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit because there are a couple of areas which I do look for. You'll see that GitHub Copilot is already selected. If you don't want to install the GitHub Copilot, you can simply click on that box there and unmark it. I'm going to keep it marked because I will use it eventually. As with the Azure Data Lake is also included and so forth. But the bit I'm going to be looking for is the class designer. I do like using the class designer, so I'm going to include that as part of my tools. And also the help viewer. That really does come in quite handy when you want to get offline support when using C#. Okay, I don't think there's much else I'm going to use. I do sometimes use links to SQL, but we're going to be using both anyway, so I don't need the tools to support that. So I'm quite happy with that. Now, you might want to choose your language pack. At the moment, I'm using English, but as you can see, there's quite an array of languages available to you. You've got your simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, Czech, and so forth. Just check which one, just check, bad pun. Just select which one you want to use, okay? You'll also see where it's going to install it. So on mine, it's going to go to program files. I'm happy with that. So you can actually check these under the installation locations. And I always make sure that my install while downloading option is selected. Now you can probably see, let me just zoom in here. You can see just how much space this is going to take. So we've got a total of 12.26 gigabytes for this. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Always check that your drive can take that volume of work. If it can't, then I would recommend slicing off a few pieces of what we've already selected and maybe think about that for the future. Okay. So I'm just going to hit install, and whilst it's installing, whilst it's downloading, it's going to install the software for me. So I'll just do that now. Now this is the boring bit, but just to, not what I'm saying, I hope, but the actual process here. So it's downloaded the information, it's going through. Now you'll notice I've actually got an enterprise version of Visual Studio, so I currently use that anyway, but it's important to understand that the Visual Studio Community Edition will get you a long way in programming. I've also got SQL Server Management Studio 21. That's relatively new, and I installed that probably about a few days ago. If you are running a Windows computer, this is the best tool to use for coding in C#. It's got everything that you need embedded within it. I personally find it very easy to use. However, there is a steep learning curve at the beginning, which I hope that I'm going to take you through. I'm going to let this continue to install. Hopefully it won't take too long, but it might take longer for yourself, okay? As I said, I've already got a version of this pre-installed, so it should go through installing the packages really quickly. Plus also it does help to have a good broadband connection, so a particularly fast one. It's almost finished now, so I'm just going to let it finish off. And then I'll take you into Visual Studio itself so you can see and get a feel for what it is. I might skip a bit just to get to that stage. Okay, so once it restarts, you should be presented with this screen. As you can see, I've got no recent files. I'm just going down the right-hand side here for you a moment. I'm just open this up a little bit. I've got clone a repository, open a project or solution, open a local folder, create a new project, and also continue without code. You would use the clone a repository if you're trying to get an application that may be sitting on GitHub at the moment and you just want to pull down the source code so you can use it from there. Open a project or solution is really handy if you've got like a USB stick or something like that, or maybe somebody's emailed you a zipped up file. You can do that. You can also use open local folder in the same vein. I would say that the open project or solution, because you'll get a list of your past applications in this open recent area, you might not have a need for using that. But today what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a new project. So I'm just going to simply click on this one. So now you can see that we're in create a new project, and this is all the templates that are available. There are quite a few. It's really important that you use the filters at the top of your screen to identify which is your preferred programming. Now, I'm going to be using C#, so I'm going to choose C# under languages. I want it to function on all platforms. These are all the different operating systems that we're going to have available to us. And I'm going to use a console application. So I'm just going to scroll down and select console. As we progress in the training, I will show you different templates, but at the moment we're going to use a console application. Now the difference between these two applications here, as you can see, let me just zoom in on the area for you a moment. There you go. This one allows you to create an application that will work on Linux, Mac, and Windows, okay, using C# in the console setting. This one down here is the old version of .NET, okay? The .NET framework. So you've got .NET Core and .NET Framework. .NET Core allows you to create applications that work on different platforms. .NET Framework is Windows only, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose Console Application at the top here and hit Next. Okay, now I get to choose the name of my project. So I'm going to call this My First Program. Okay. You can see in this window here where it's going to be stored. So it's going to be stored. The general rule of thumb is your main drive. So in this case, it's C#, the users directory, and whichever user you're currently signed into at the moment. In the root of your users directory, you've then got your source folder, and off your source folder is your repos. And this is where all my applications are going to go. Now you'll notice that the project name and the solution name are both the same. So what I generally do is under the solution name, I'll put in app. That just allows me to tell the difference between my project and my solution. Now, it might not be so important today, but it could become more important in the future. All right. And I'll explain why when we get to that step. All right. So I'm going to hit Next. Now I'm going to choose which version of .NET I'm going to use. So I'm going to use .NET 8 because that has long-term support. There is a .NET 9, which is a later version, but that only has standard term support. The rule of thumb is if it's an even number, so .NET 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, which is coming out later on this year, they all have long-term support. That means that they've got an extended period of time. I think it's like 3 years whilst they are available to you. Whereas all the odd numbers, so your .NET 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, all have standard term support. So they're around about 12 to 18 months. I don't know exactly how much. Okay. So I'm going to just simply choose that. Now I'm not going to set up a container. So if you're familiar with Docker, that's basically creating that environment. I do not wish to use top level statements, and I'm not going to enable AOT either. We'll get into those later on in the program. So I'm going to hit create. And what it will do then is it will build a templated, it will then create the environment that I'm going to use. Now you probably can't see it, so I'm going to use Control and my wheel to make that bigger. Okay. And this is a Hello World script. So it's using console writeline hello world. All right. The console is the class name. So if I hover over there, it tells me it's a class. It's part of the class system and using console. The writeline is a method that's currently being used, and that requires some information in the parentheses. Your parentheses are these brackets here and here. Inside there, we have a string saying hello world. If I come up to this option here where it says my first program, and it looks like a little play button, and I press the button, what it will do is it will then run the application and open up a shell. Here's the shell. And inside the shell, it says hello world. Beneath it, it's got all this guff here. I'll show you later on how to remove it. I would not recommend removing it until you've used it for a while. So I'm just going to press any key to close the window. And there you go, all done. Let's get rid of GitHub Copilot chat. Because the other thing that's worth having over here on the right-hand side is the Solution Explorer. Now, if it's missing from your application, go up to the View option and choose Solution Explorer. It's right at the top here, and that will then show you your files. We have the solution. Let me just zoom in over there a moment for you. There you go. So first of all, we have the solution, which is the overall name of the application. We have the project name, which is my first program. Then we have a folder with dependencies, and that contains some very important files. I'll show you those in a moment. And then right at the very bottom, we have the program.cs file, which is a file that contains the script that's running the hello world. Okay. So if I go into dependencies, you'll see we've got analyzers, and if I just close that up, we've got the framework as well. And the framework that we're using is .NET Core. Okay. So this is a first look at Visual Studio Community Edition. If I go up to my help and down to about, you'll see that it is the community version 2022, and it'll tell you what version we are. As I said, today is the 4th of August 2025. So I believe this is the latest version today, but it could change at any time. All right. So that's just getting started with Visual Studio Community Edition. Next, I'm going to show you Visual Studio Code. So now I'm going to install Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to do a search for Visual Studio Code. There you go. And I'll go to the website. So here we've got loads of different options for you. With Windows users, you do also have it available in Store. So if I open up my store and go to Visual Studio Code, okay, I can simply check one of these. Now, I think they're both the same, to be fair. That's 4.6. That's version 4.6. Oh, that's Insider's version. So your Insider's version is like a preview version, okay? So for your standard one, you can choose this. Also, you can use Store for Visual Studio Community 2022 as well. I'm just going to simply click on the free, and then it will take it to install. And I'll let it go through the installation process. And you can see it's going to do it really quickly. So it says now almost done. That might be down to the speed of my internet that's helping out with that. There you go. So it's now installed. Okay, so now that I've got Visual Studio Code open, we're going to open a folder. So I'm just going to go to open folder here. By the way, there are some hints and tips over here on the right side of the screen if you want to use that. This is on the welcome screen, but I'm just going to go and open folder. And I need to find a place where I want to keep all my projects. Now, I keep all my stuff in a source folder. I've actually got an area called VS Code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder in here. So I'm going to go new folder, and I'll call it first project. Press return. I'm going to select that folder. There you go. And you'll see now at the top here, it'll say first project. Okay, your first project. Right, now what we need to do is open up Terminal. And what Terminal will do is it will take me straight inside that folder. So you can see I'm in first project. And what we need to do is we need to get our first .NET kind of templates files in place. So I'm going to do .NET new console. Okay, and I'm just going to press return. And what it'll do is it'll put in all the files that I need to start a console project. So as you can see up here, we've got this. Now, inside the program file should be the hello world, and there it is. Okay. Now, if I want to run this, so I should be able to just run this application. So I'm just going to do .NET run, press return. With a bit of luck, it should start running. There you go. So we've got hello world. Okay. So that's how you would set up VS Code. There are more that you can do with VS Code, and we will cover that in later episodes. Okay. Now we're going to move on to JetBrains Rider. Okay. So as promised, this is going to be installing JetBrains Rider on a macOS system. So first of all, we need to go to the JetBrains website. So let's just do that a moment. So I'll do a quick search for JetBrains. There you go. It's going to take me straight to it, in fact. Now, when we look at the developer tools, what we want to do is we don't want to just jump straight in and install Rider. You're better off actually installing the Toolbox app, which is this one here. Okay, now the reason for that is if later on you decide you want to install IntelliJ or PyCharm or any of the other tools that are available here, then you can install those through the Toolbox app. Also, the Toolbox app kind of oversees what your applications are doing and may include some updates or something like that. So I'm going to download and install the Toolbox app to start with. So I simply click on it. Now, straight away, it's actually picked up that I'm using macOS Apple Silicon, so I can download this. So I'll do that. And you can see it's downloaded. And it's downloaded successfully. So I'm going to go to Show Downloads. And you can see I've already done this earlier on. So I am going to click on this option here, double click, let it run. And it's going to say to drag it into applications. So all you would need to do is drag it into applications like so. This will then go into the applications folder and allow you to use the application. So let me just do that a moment. And it's now installed onto applications. Okay. I double tap the application. It will ask me whether I want to open it because it's a downloaded item from the internet. So I'm going to say, yeah, open it. Let it go through the course. And this is the toolbox here. So the toolbox will now live up here in the taskbar area. Okay. Now, the one I want to install is Rider. So let me just close down all of this stuff here. Don't need any of this now. And we don't need the application in the background, so I'll get rid of that. So I'll come up to my toolbox and I'll find Rider. And this also applies in Windows as well. So you would just go to the taskbar in Windows to locate it. So there it is, all in one IDE for .NET and game development. And it's a free non-commercial use. So I'm just going to install that. There you go. So it would have disappeared from here because now it appears on my downloads area at the top here. And you can see it's downloading away. So we'll let it go through the course of downloading. Now, as I said, Rider will work on Windows, Linux, and macOS. So you shouldn't have any problems using this tool. One other thing that you will need is a JetBrains account. So maybe whilst it's downloading, you can set yourself up with a JetBrains account. So it's going through the unpacking process. And once all of that is done, I should be able to run the application. So let's just see what happens once the unpacking process is completed. There you go. So it's now fully installed. It tells you just here that it's installed. So I'm just going to double tap on this and it's going to open it. Here it is. Now at this point, you can choose to drag it over to this side of your taskbar, bar down here, and it's simply pin it here. So I think it automatically does it, but we'll just see, yeah, keep in dock. This is the application running now, and you can see I've got my first app running up here. This is something I did earlier. I'll get rid of that for a moment so we can show you how to set this up. It might not actually be there, so let me just see. Oh, it's not there, so I'm just going to remove it. Remove. So ordinarily, you'd be presented with this screen, okay? Add a new project, open an existing project, or clone from the repository. So again, just like with both VS Code and with Visual Studio, you can grab information from, say, GitHub, GitLab, or something like that, and use clone the product straight down. I'm going to start a new solution, so we'll click here. I'm going to call this my first, I'll call it my first program. Whoops, can't spell. My first program. That's the solution name and the project name. Now, unfortunately, this is back to front to what we're used to. So I'm going to call this one app. And for the project, I'm going to leave the app off. Now, you may need to install the SDK. Okay, it will prompt you to do so. As you can see, mine doesn't because I've already got the SDK 9.0. But all you would do is click on the link and it will download it for you, and then you'll be presented with the screen. We are going to be using 9.0 for this example. And also it's C# we're going to be building our application from. It is a console application. If I want to choose something else, I can choose that from the templates. I can install the templates down here. But I'm not going to do that at this stage. I'll do that at another time. Once we've got that, I don't want to use top level statements. There's no real template to use because we're going to be using the console. The console automatically uses .NET Core because, well, .NET framework will not work on a Mac OS. And we've got some advanced settings here as well, which are very similar to the tools we were using before. This is going to be chosen from framework. Okay, so if I just hit create, you'll see that we'll be presented with this window. And in this window, you'll see that we've got our area where we can program. So we've got the console right line hello world, just like we had with Visual Studio earlier on. But we've also got all our files listed here on the left. At the top, we have our menu bar, and we can choose anything from that menu bar that we want to use. Again, just like before, we can run. And we've also got debug as well immediately next to it. So if we want to run this application, we simply run it. Now, unlike with Visual Studio, which opened up a shell, what Rider does is it opens up a shell within the application. So I'm just going to click on that button there. And you'll see that inside the application is a shell and it says hello world. So this is a shell running within the application. Okay. And it's running perfectly fine. I'm happy with that. I don't need to do anything else with it. So we've got a solution, we've got a shell running, and we know how to run it. Okay, so hopefully that will work for you. Again, like I said before, you can run this in Windows, and I'll run a Windows version of Rider just to show you that at a later program. Okay. So to get out of this, I generally go up to Rider and then hit Quit JetBrains. It'll ask me, am I sure? I can click here to say don't ask again, but I'll just click on Exit and all done. Okay, so that's installing Rider on Mac OS. Okay, I hope you found that useful, installing those 3 applications. By all means, choose whichever one's best for you. So if you're using Windows, you can use Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, or Rider. Entirely up to you. Personally, if I'm using Windows, I would recommend using Visual Studio, the community version, just to get you started. And maybe later on, you might want to switch to VS Code or Rider. But certainly for Mac and Linux users, you've only got a smaller selection. So really VS Code or Rider. Okay. So, like I said, I hope you found this video useful. If you have, please feel free to subscribe, and I'll be doing more of these videos showing you how to use C# and how you can program in C#. The next video will cover variables. I look forward to seeing you. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.